The Sunday School lesson for October 25th is Pray Fervently. The main point of the lesson is, our prayers connect us with God's plan. The focal passage for the lesson is Daniel chapter 2, verses 13 through 21 and verses 26 through 28. Have you ever had to pray for your life? Not everyone has had to face that situation. Many of us have been in difficult or dangerous situations, but those situations didn't rise to a level of dealing with our mortality. Some of you may have experienced that dilemma, though. Perhaps you have faced a medical situation that truly jeopardized your life. Or perhaps you have been in the line of fire in the military or some other hazardous job. At those times, many people do indeed turn to prayer and truly seek after God because He appears to be the only one capable of providing aid. Unfortunately, not everyone remembers that God delivered them after the crisis passed. Daniel and his colleagues faced a desperate situation in which their lives were in grave danger, and they responded to that threat with prayer. The setting for the crisis is found in Daniel chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians, and the astrologers, and the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king, and the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, The thing is gone from me. If you will not make known unto me the dream, with the interpretation thereof, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if you show the dream, and the interpretation thereof, you shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream, and the interpretation thereof. Nebuchadnezzar was the king of the Babylonian Empire. This was actually called the Neo-Babylonian Empire by historians. At that time, he was the most powerful figure in the world. Babylon was a major superpower that appeared to have no rival. However, Nebuchadnezzar was troubled by some dreams. Those dreams generated a ton of anxiety for Nebuchadnezzar, so much so that he couldn't sleep. Perhaps he was worried that a rival empire was on the verge of emerging. He was well aware that empires rise and fall. He had taken many down. He may have also had concerns about uprising and coups within his own kingdom. And Nebuchadnezzar was such a great and powerful man that after he died, his kingdom essentially ceased to exist. They were overrun after his death. His successors could not hold a candle to his power. He could look at the empires he had conquered and realize that the same thing could happen to him unless he was vigilant. With great power comes great anxiety. Now, our modern thought would be that it was the anxiety that was causing him to have bad dreams. However, in his worldview, dreams were important. In fact, a lot of people today put a lot of stock in dreams. I remember growing up, my grandfather would tell me many stories about what dreams meant and how important dreams were to how you reacted to them. For example, I was told growing up, if you didn't want a dream to come true, don't tell it before breakfast. If you told a dream before breakfast, it would come to pass. Now, that could be disturbing if you had a bad dream. Then there were other interpretations of what certain dreams meant. If you dreamt about one thing, that would result in the death of someone in your family, or it was a foretelling of death to come. It was amazing how many of those dreams dealt with death. But all the dreams had some sort of meaning to them. Now, a lot of times, to be honest with you, I think sometimes he was pulling our leg. Though I know some of the dream lore is common among some people. But a lot of people today put stock in dreams. They wonder what their dreams mean, and it's more than just having pizza too late at night. Now, for Nebuchadnezzar, dreams were communication from the gods. These were not just a curious experience to muse over, but they were matters of state, matters of national importance. So he summoned the wise men of his kingdom to explain the dreams. But he had a condition. he would not tell them the dream. If they truly had supernatural knowledge, then they had to prove it. He didn't want to be sold a bill of goods, so they really had to have skills. The problem for these wise men is that they didn't have the skills. What the king was asking was impossible by human standards. Now, if the king told them the dream, they could easily come up with something that would make sense and sound good and would be to their favor. And the king was aware of that. He was aware that he could be scammed, so he was putting their feet to the fire. Not only were the wise men to interpret the dream, but they had to tell them what the dream was in the first place. Now, if they succeeded, they would have riches beyond their imaginations, rewards, honors, promotions. But if they failed, they would be killed and their houses destroyed. The wise men could not do what he wanted. And they told the king that his request was impossible. Now, that was a bad career choice. They probably should have surveyed some of the other wise men to see if somebody had an answer or could come up with something. And it would have been better for them to have tried, because what they are essentially saying is, well, you really can't rely on us. We're no good to you. And so the king said, fine, I'm going to kill you all. It was, his version of corporate downsizing. If they could not accomplish their purpose, his version of laying off meant killing them. So the king ordered the execution of all the wise men. Now that included Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Daniel 2:13. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation. The king's guards began to assemble the wise men for execution. The first wise man had spoken on behalf of all the wise men, and all the wise men were implicated in their answer. Daniel and his colleagues had not had a chance to respond to the king's request. They were new to their jobs and responsibilities and would not have been on the top tier advising the king. When the guards came for Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, Daniel delicately asked why they were being rounded up. Daniel had to be delicate in how he answered the question. The term described as guard also means executioner. Essentially, he's asking the chief executioner why they're going to be executed. He's asking about the charges, and if he asked the wrong way, he could be summarily executed. His neck was already on the chopping block. The executioner could have just killed him for insolence. But Daniel very discreetly and delicately asked what's going on and why the king has leveled such a impulsive command and decree upon all the wise men when all the wise men have not participated. And Arioch, chief executioner, he explained the situation. And Daniel, through this chief executioner, appealed to the king to be heard on the matter. And before a hearing could be arranged, and before even hearing whether or not he would be allowed to do so, Daniel went to his friends. Look at verse 17. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire the mercies of God of heaven concerning the secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. Daniel told his buddies what was going on, as well as the risk he had taken. Not only was Daniel's life at stake, but the lives of all the wise men in Babylon. And note that Daniel had a concern, not just for him and his colleagues, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. He's concerned for all the wise men, even though they're pagans. He has sympathy and mercy toward them. And Daniel responds with prayer and asking his friends to join in prayer. Daniel asked for the three men to join him in prayer over the matter, and the four prayed intently. The importance of prayer is one of the major themes that runs through the book of Daniel. These are men that are at the mercy of a pagan king in a hostile environment. They have no rights and no protection. They can't appeal to the government on these matters. The only help they can rely upon is from God. They are having to totally trust and rely in God on every matter. And for that reason, whenever a problem comes up, they turn to God in prayer. Not only that, but they pray on a regular basis, daily, multiple times a day, and not just a brief prayer before they eat a meal or go to bed. They are praying intently throughout the day anyway. And we'll see that through the book of Daniel. They're praying to God. Now we are quickly told that God answers the prayer of these men. It's a good thing because time is of the essence. That night in a dream, Daniel is given the king's dream and its meaning. Daniel responded in praise of God. He acknowledged that it is God who controls the world, especially the nations of the world. God is the source of all power and wisdom. Really, verses 20 through 23 are a psalm that Daniel composes as a praise of thanksgiving to God. Let's look at the whole song. It's worth looking at. Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changes the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might, and hast made known unto me what we desired of thee. For thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter." So Daniel praises God for all that God does, for all the wisdom. He acknowledges God as being merciful and how he's blessed him, and also that God has power over every minute detail and over the major things as well. God changes the seasons. He's in control of time. He's in control of the empires of the world. And God has all knowledge and power. And God knows everything. And God has blessed Daniel in revealing the knowledge, and Daniel just gives him praise. It's a wonderful act of praise that we see here. Now Daniel praised God for being in control and for giving him the answer. And the next day he went to Arioch and told him to spare the wise men. Again, he's showing concern for all the wise men. He could have said, "Yeah, go ahead and kill them off. Me and my buddies, we know the answer and you can spare us." But people would sometimes show disregard for the lives of others just to get ahead. Not Daniel. Daniel was concerned for the well-being of everyone. He promised that he had an answer for the king. Keep in mind that Daniel was risking his life every step of the way. Yet he was confident in the answer that God had provided. Look at verse 24. Therefore Daniel went into Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, "Destroy not the wise men of Babylon, bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation." Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, "I have found a man of the captives of Judah, that will make known unto the king the interpretation." The king answered and said unto Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, "Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof?" Let me just pause here. The king knew Daniel to an extent. He had spoken with him and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah when they had passed their civil service exam and had found them worthy. Has spent time with them, but he has a lot of servants. He has a lot of wise men, and these new guys went down to the bottom of the rung. This is almost like a reintroduction. The king may have recognized him, even known who he was, but Daniel has not proven his worth yet before the king. He's just shown some promise. But now he says to the king, I am able to solve the riddle that you have posed. Verse 27. Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, "The secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, and the soothsayers show unto thee, king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these." So Daniel says, it's impossible for men to interpret your dream, or to even tell you what your dream was. That's beyond the realm of human ability. And had he just said that, you can imagine Nebuchadnezzar was beginning to get angry. because that's the same answer the wise men had originally given him. But quickly, Daniel says, there is a God who knows everything. So he is testifying. He's not just claiming credit for himself. He is giving God the glory and giving his answer. He's giving the king the reason why he knows the answer to the king's riddles and why he can explain the dream. And he tells the king that the dream pertains to future events. He's letting the king know that his answer is not of his own cunning, but he has relied upon the revelation of God. Now, Daniel was able to describe the king's dream. In his dream, the king saw a tremendous statue of a man. The head of the statue was gold, and the chest and arms were silver, the belly and thighs of bronze, the legs of iron, and the feet were a mixture of iron and clay. Then the king saw a stone, not cut by human hands, strike the statue's feet, and the whole thing fell apart and basically disintegrated. The statue disappeared, but the stone grew into a great mountain that filled the earth. The interpretation was that each part of the statue represented a different human kingdom. The top, the best, was Nebuchadnezzar's empire. His would be followed by an inferior empire, which would be followed by another inferior empire, and then by a really inferior empire. The Babylonian Empire was followed by the Persian and Medes, which was followed by the Greeks and then by the Romans. Now, some have said, now wait a minute, these kingdoms that followed the Babylonian Empire were greater. And in the terms of mankind, perhaps we could ascribe them even greater power. Certainly each successive empire was larger, but the moral quality of those kingdoms was not better. And the world was growing worse as time went as well. And again, there's a certain moral quality to each empire that degrades at each level. So you might say that they're on a moral decline. As far as God's concerned, that's more of greater value than the size or power of a particular earthly kingdom. Now, again, the golden head represents Nebuchadnezzar in the Neo-Babylonian Empire. That's the best one. That's followed by the Medes and Persians, which is the silver. A little bit less worthy empire in God's eyes. The Greeks are representing the bronze. I think that's interesting because the Greeks had a lot of bronze weaponry. Then it's followed by iron, representing the Romans. And iron is an appropriate symbol for the Romans, whose empire was so harsh, is also superior in weaponry, iron weaponry over the bronze of the Greeks. Now the Greeks by that time had also developed iron weapons, but the Romans were better known for it. So you had the Roman Empire, but the Roman Empire became brittle, mixed with clay. Iron mixed with clay is a recipe for disaster anyway. And with the fall of the Republic and the rise of the empire, you had problems within Rome and the Roman culture. Problems that emerged shortly after Augustus was the ruler. They didn't have that many great emperors, and there was problems at the very beginning. But there's a stone that comes and smashes the feet, that future Roman Empire, and it brings down everything. Except that the stone replaces everything. Who is that stone? Well, from the New Testament we know that that stone is Jesus Christ. Romans 9:33, as it is written, behold, I lay in Zion a stumbling stone, a rock of offense, and whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed. He's quoting from Isaiah, but he's also picking up on that idea that Christ himself is the cornerstone instead of a stumbling stone. He is either way. He is either the stumbling block for those who refuse to believe that leads to their destruction, or he is the cornerstone of faith upon which the whole church is built. Jesus spoke of himself as a stone in Luke 20, verse 17, and he beheld them and said, what is then that is written? The stone which the builders rejected, the same is become the head of the corner. Whosoever shall fall upon that stone shall be broken, but on whomever it shall fall, it will grind him to powder. Using a little bit of the imagery from Daniel about the reaction with the stone and with humanity. Human empires and those who trust in humanity's abilities will be crushed by the power of the kingdom. But those who trust in it are able to participate and be a part of the kingdom which is greater than all the others. God was promising through Daniel, through Nebuchadnezzar's dream, that God himself would establish an eternal kingdom on earth through his chosen Messiah. So really, Nebuchadnezzar was given a messianic prophecy that Daniel was able to interpret. Now, the dream foretold the rise and fall of human empires, but God would ultimately establish an eternal kingdom. And that kingdom began when Jesus came to earth and will be consummated with his return. It's a fascinating dream that predicted the course of the next several hundred years of history and also gives us insight to the end times. But central to the story is not the dream, but how it was interpreted. It was interpreted as an answer to prayer. Daniel and his friends had no way out. They had to rely upon God in prayer. He was faithful to honor their prayer, and God gave them the answer, and Daniel in return gave God glory for his merciful response. Now, it is always a wonderful thing when God responds to our prayers and gives us the answers that we're in need of. So, thinking about answering prayer, but I also thought about the rock. And that popped into my head, a hymn, Rock of Ages, cleft for me. Rock of ages, cleft for me, let me hide myself in thee. Let the water and the blood from thy wounded side which flowed be of sin the double cure. Save from wrath and make me pure. Not the labors of my hands can fulfill thy law's demands. These for sin could not atone. Thou must save, and thou alone. In my hand no price I bring, simply to thy cross I cling. While I draw this fleeting breath, when mine eyes shall close in death, when I rise to worlds unknown, and behold thee on thy throne, Rock of ages, cleft for me, let me hide myself in thee. Prayer gives us someone to go to and someone to trust in when we have the most difficult problems in the world. Prayer is a conversation that we have with God, and He helps us through difficult situations. Not always with the answer that we want, but certainly with the answer that's best for us. But part of that comes in trusting in Him for a solution, and we do that by turning over our cares and concerns in prayer to Him. Thank you for watching. I pray that this lesson has been informative and a blessing. Please share this lesson with others, and if you are able, I'd like to invite you to join us at Ebenezer Baptist Church. Ebenezer Baptist Church is located at 7305 Highway 166 in Douglasville, Georgia. Sunday school is at 9:45 a.m. and morning worship is at 11 a.m. We also have an evening worship service on Sundays at 6 p.m. We have a weekly prayer meeting at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays. Additionally, if you have any questions about the lesson or have any prayer requests, please email me at pastorterrybraswell@gmail.com. Thank you.